It's strange how some of life's biggest turning points don't arrive with warning bells or flashing lights. Sometimes they sneak in quietly, wrapped inside the most ordinary moments. Moments you could have ignored if you just looked away a second sooner. For me, it started in a garage. Not my garage, his. He was just putting away a tool. Something as small, as harmless, as sliding a wrench back into a battered red toolbox. But in that quiet second, something shifted inside me. I wish I could say it was sudden, like lightning splitting the sky, but it wasn't. It was slow, almost imperceptible, like the tide creeping closer until you finally notice the water touching your toes. The summer sun had been hanging low that afternoon, coating the quiet streets of our Wisconsin suburb in gold. Our neighborhood was the kind of place where you could almost set your watch by people's routines. Every Saturday morning, the hum of lawnmowers would start like clockwork. Every Thursday, recycling bins lined up neatly along the curb, blue plastic catching the morning light. And every evening, you'd see the same faces on their porches, waving politely, but never too long, never too interested. We were all polite here. Polite enough not to ask. Polite enough not to tell. I'd been married to Tom for 8 years. On paper, we were solid. 2 kids, a modest house, our names side by side on the PTA sign-up sheet. We had the same lawn chairs, the same weekend grocery runs, the same inside jokes that had grown stale from too little use. But somewhere between carpools and mortgage payments, we stopped being us. We didn't fight. We didn't laugh much either. It was like living with a stranger you once loved, but could no longer remember why. Tom's job had taken him out of town during the week. At first, I hated it. The empty bed, the dinners for one. But over time, the absence felt easier than the presence. The silence between us had grown so thick, so heavy, it almost felt like relief when he wasn't there. Then Jason moved in, the new neighbor. His full name was Jason Matthews. Early 30s, rough hands, a face that looked like it belonged in a workwear ad. The kind of man you could picture holding a cup of black coffee on a half-built porch at sunrise. His skin had the kind of tan you don't get from vacations, the kind you earn under long hours of sun, hauling, building, fixing. Dark stubble lined his jaw, making those sharp green eyes stand out even more. He was a contractor, I later learned, and he just bought the fixer-upper across the street. The one with peeling paint and a front porch that leaned like it was tired of standing. From the day he arrived, I noticed him. More importantly, he noticed me. It started small. A wave when I was out watering my flowers. A casual, "How's it going?" when we both ended up at the mailbox at the same time. Little offers to help, a broken fence post, a stubborn door hinge. I always declined, hiding behind polite smiles I couldn't quite keep from curling at the edges. That afternoon, the day it happened was one of those deceptively warm, early summer days when everything smells faintly of cut grass and sunscreen. I'd just come back from the grocery store, juggling 2 bags on each arm. When I saw him, he was crouched by his open garage, working under the hood of his truck. Sweat clung to his forearms, catching in the light. When he leaned forward, his shirt shifted just enough to reveal a strip of skin at his lower back. I told myself to look away. I didn't. He glanced up, and for a moment our eyes locked. "Need a hand with those bags?" he called. "I've got it," I answered quickly, fumbling with my keys, but he was already halfway across the street. When he stepped onto my driveway, I felt it, that invisible shift. Not in the air, in me. It wasn't about what he said or how close he stood. It was something deeper, like a quiet pull toward the warmth of a fire you didn't realize you'd been cold without. He took 2 of the heavier bags from me without asking and followed me inside. "That's a lot of wine," he teased, setting them on the counter. I laughed. "Don't judge. The kids are at my parents'. It's my weekend off." His eyebrow lifted, like that was information worth storing away. "Lucky weekend," he said. And the way he said it wasn't casual at all. I busied myself, unloading groceries, pretending I didn't feel the weight of his presence behind me. He didn't leave right away. Instead, he leaned against the counter, watching me like I was something he'd been considering for a while. "So," he said slowly, "you here all weekend by yourself?" My hands froze on the cereal box. "Yep," I said, my voice a little too light. "Must be nice," he murmured. I told myself. I was imagining the way his eyes lingered. I wasn't. He picked up the wine bottle, turned it over in his hands like he was checking the label. "Good choice," he said. "Maybe I'll open it later," I said, and I meant it as a joke. I don't think he took it that way. The air between us felt like it had thickened somehow. Not uncomfortable, just charged. He didn't stay much longer. But when he left, he glanced over his shoulder before stepping out the door. Like he wanted to make sure I was still watching. And I was. That night, I kept replaying it in my head. The way his voice dipped when he asked if I'd be alone. The way he looked at me over the counter. It was harmless. That's what I told myself. Just a neighbor being friendly. But the way my stomach tightened when I thought about him, that didn't feel harmless. The next morning, I found an excuse to water my front garden a little longer than necessary. He came out to check his mail, like clockwork. "Morning," he said, his eyes skimming over me in a way that made the air feel warmer. "Morning," I answered, smiling into the rim of my coffee mug. It was small talk. On the surface. Underneath. Something else entirely. Later, I found myself checking the clock more often, listening for the sound of his truck starting up or pulling in. By the second evening, it wasn't just coincidence anymore. We were finding reasons to cross paths. He'd linger at his fence. I'd linger by mine, and the space between us started to feel like a decision, waiting to be made. That Friday evening, the air was thick with the smell of barbecue from somewhere down the street. I was outside, pretending to sweep the porch. He stepped out, beer in hand, like the timing had been rehearsed. "Busy?" he asked, leaning on the railing between our yards. "Not really," I said, setting the broom aside, like I'd been waiting for him to ask. He nodded toward his place. "Come over for a drink?" My pulse jumped. I hesitated for just long enough to make it seem like I had to think about it. "Sure," I said finally, and my voice didn't sound nearly as casual as I wanted it to. He grinned like he'd been waiting for that answer all day. Inside, his place smelled faintly of cedar and something darker. Cologne, maybe. He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing mine longer than necessary. "Cheers," he said, his eyes holding mine over the rim. "Cheers," I echoed, my throat suddenly dry. We sat on his couch, a comfortable distance apart at first. But the space between us didn't stay comfortable for long. He asked about my week, his voice low. The conversation drifting into slower, heavier territory. I told him about work, about nothing important, but the way he listened made it feel important. At some point, his knee brushed mine. He didn't move it away. I didn't move either. The air felt thick again, like it had in my kitchen. Only this time, neither of us pretended not to notice. He set his glass down, leaning back like he was giving me a choice. I set mine down too. And then, neither of us said a word.